Hi everyone, and welcome to a new Smarter SAT Prep video. In this example, we'll be looking at hard vocab questions on the SAT writing section. This is question number 10 taken from official practice test number 1. As you can see, I've excerpted some of the passage from the first passage of that writing section. And for this question, we'll be looking at simply number 10. So I'm going to start reading from the line, or from the word underlined also. So if we look at this question and start reading, it says, also, because it is more concentrated, Greek yogurt contains slightly more protein per serving, thereby helping people stay satiated for longer periods of time. And the phrase that has been underlined for us to possibly correct is the word satiated. So for this kind of a question where you have to choose between a bunch of different words for vocab in a sentence, you need to be able to look at two things which I've written above, which is context and elimination. So for this kind of a question where maybe you're not sure what a word means, it's important to figure out context. Even if a word typically means something, if in the sentence that it's used in, it has a different clue or some kind of a different meaning or context, then that might not be the right word. You got to figure out what its general meaning is, but also how it's used in a sentence to figure out if it's the correct word to use in the question that they're asking. And the second thing to do after you figure out context is to then use elimination. So if you figure out words which simply don't make sense in the sentences that they're used in, then you want to be able to eliminate them and then continue doing that until you get to the right answer, even if you don't know exactly what a word means. So this is a prime example of that. In this question, we have the words satiated, fulfilled, complacent, and sufficient. Now you probably know what 3 out of 4 of these words mean, and satiated is probably the word that you're not very familiar with. But I'm going to show you how you can break down this question and get the right answer, even if you don't fully know what this word means. So I'm going to skip it for now and simply look at the 3 answer choices below. I'm going to skip B for now and simply start with C, complacent. So in this question, context is important, and so let's look at it. So the word that's underlined comes in between saying that Greek yogurt, that the Greek yogurt that they're talking about has slightly more protein, which means it's going to help people stay blank for longer periods of time. And so just using this context, we can tell that this word needs to mean something related to staying full or not being hungry, right? It says there's more protein, which means that people are going to be eating just a little bit more. More is going to be going to their stomachs, which means that they're going to be staying full for longer periods of time, or they're not going to have to be eating as often. So knowing that, if we look at the word complacent, we probably know that that means that you're complacent or you're kind of like doing something without actually staying focused on it, right? You've been doing something for a long time. Maybe you don't have as much passion or interest in it, and so you don't really want to progress into a higher form. You're kind of just stuck at where you're at. So that sounds interesting. It sounds kind of related to what we're talking about, but really we're talking about people not wanting to eat. And complacent has to do more with like someone doing an activity or their own like personal well-being. So we can eliminate this kind of pretty quickly. It just doesn't fit the context of this question. D is sufficient, which again sounds similar, right? Someone is sufficiently full. They just don't want to eat anymore. But if we think about it, we're talking about someone, like this word has to be related to what someone is feeling. And sufficient isn't really something that a person can be feeling, right? If they're not hungry, we wouldn't refer to them as being sufficient. Sufficient would maybe be referred to as the food that they ate. They ate a sufficient amount of food, but they themselves are not sufficient, so we can eliminate this. Now let's look at B, fulfilled. Now, this seems to make sense at first, right? A person doesn't want to eat, so they are officially fulfilled. But let's think about this word. Fulfilled has to do more with like someone doing an activity, right? So like if they've done an activity or maybe their own personal qualities, they feel fulfilled with what they've done. But in this question, we're talking about someone not being hungry. And in that case, fulfilled simply doesn't make as much sense. Someone is fulfilled or they're proud of what they've done, they feel accomplished. But that doesn't really have to do with not being hungry. That's just a feeling that they have. That's just a state of being that they're in. So we can pretty much eliminate fulfilled as well. Now we're just left with satiated, and by process of elimination, this is the answer that we would go with. And it just so happens to be that satiated means that you're no longer hungry. It means that you're simply been satisfied with the food that you've eaten, and you no longer feel like eating more. That's pretty much the exact definition of satiated. So it's pretty much the exact word that we're looking for in this situation, and it's the word that they gave us, which means that we can stick with that as our right answer. So as you can see, we were able to come to the right answer, satiated, without even knowing what it meant. And in this case, we got to the right spot that we wanted. And so if we just follow this process of looking for context and then eliminating, we can solve a lot of hard vocab problems on the SAT, especially the SAT writing and reading sections. Thank you for watching this video, and we'll see you in the next one.